fire also has an American history. This is a country where we burn flags and crosses, but where, as poet Adrienne Rich wrote, quoting the radical priest Daniel Berrigan, imprisoned for burning draft cards and the records of teenagers drafted for Vietnam, we are asked to defend the burning of paper instead of children. We like movies that end in fiery explosions. We're generous about guns, whose mechanisms necessitate the ignition of the bullet, a handheld fire.
If you've never seen the remnants of a wildfire, it looks almost otherworldly. Withered pillars of black stand over the dead and burnt remains of itself. The trees are their own gravestones. The ground seems to have shrunk and grown, with any small shrubs turned to layers upon layers of ash that your feet crunch and sink into. You, for a second, lose the technicolor of your life, as everything around you reverts into a black and white static. My family used to go camping every summer. Me and my sister would get our junior ranger badges. We'd hike around in the California wilderness and roast marshmallows over a campfire. Every so often, we'd hear how one of the campgrounds we went to a few years ago burned down. What a shame.
Only you can prevent forest fires.
A phrase etched into the minds of national park visitors and those who grew up in the age of colored television, Smokey the Bear, a mascot of wilderness imposed onto the lands. His famous phrase awakens those like a sleeper agent. Only you can prevent forest fires. How uniquely American. While the onus of responsibility on the individual is realistic, many forest fires having started from improper fire handling by one person, we seek no blame in those who turned our forest bare, who turned up the temperature of the earth for a few extra percentage points on a graph, who ate at our futures and made wildfires not a disaster but a regular occurrence. PG&E, the power company in California, had scheduled blackouts for high fire danger zones, so during fire season we'd sometimes lose power. With hindsight, I think of the blackout over Spain and Portugal, where strangers would dance and party in the streets, and the togetherness it brought to those who didn't know when it would be over. Despite our power being gone, we had no revelry, no meetups, no dancing. So many times we had the ability to connect with others and refused to. My family used to own a house in Michigan. We stayed there one summer. A few years later, it burnt down. We came out to see the remains. All that lay was the imprint of the house. I remember feeling sad, but I think I was too young to fully put words to my emotions. Now that I'm older and more realized, I think the only way to describe how I felt was empty. Like my memories of the house were almost illusionary. What evidence of them were left? Was the house ever really even there? Despite what my algorithms assume of me, I don't need help quitting smoking, as I don't smoke in the first place. I never used a one-handed lighter until my senior year of college. One day I came home from class with a scented candle and wished to light it. I bought a little lighter from the campus store. It was from a big box astrological set. They're out of Cancer, my sign, so I ended up with a Capricorn lighter that I still use to this day. Capricorn isn't a fire sign. 2 of my friends had to teach me how to use it, not because I was unaware, but because of how afraid I was. I didn't want to burn myself because of how close my finger was to the flame. They helped encourage me to press down that button for the first time. Fire to me, in that moment, was community.
In the course of time, the chapters on fire in chemistry textbooks have become shorter and shorter. There are, indeed, a good many modern books on chemistry in which it is impossible to find any mention of flame or fire. Fire is no longer a reality for science. Fire, that striking, immediate object, that object which imposes itself as a first choice ahead of many other phenomenon, no longer offers any perspective for scientific investigation.
Fire is no longer held in regard to what it once was, We no longer gather around the hearth to speak to others. Our fires are the fires and television screens centered where the fireplace once was. What once was humanity's nightly commonplace, now relegated to backyard cookouts and camping. Our phones, now also containing but deeply separated from fire, are our own personal ones, keeping us tied to them. Both a hearth away from hearth, yet a distraction in the company of others. We no longer churn coals, those duties are up to charging our phones. More connected, they tell us, as we step away from conversations to answer a text.
Through the darkness of future past, the magician longs to see one chance out between two worlds. Fire, fire, fire.
When I think of home, back in California, I think of the redwoods. The trees so tall that they tell us of our insignificance. Redwoods are fairly sturdy when it comes to fires, in comparison to eucalyptus. Eucalyptus oil is highly flammable, which is one of the reasons why wildfires in California and Australia can get so bad. I grew up with a eucalyptus tree in my neighbor's yard that leaned and reached over into ours, so eucalyptus leaves would fall into our backyard. When I moved to the Midwest for college, if I ever was feeling deeply nostalgic for home, I'd eat eucalyptus cough drops, sweetly savoring the taste of something I knew could be my eventual destruction if fire knew my childhood like it did the house in Michigan. Do you remember when paradise burned? When the sky turned orange and the sun never rose? When the wind smelled so strongly of smoke that it stuck to your skin? Apocalyptic, they said. I remember that day. Our chickens wouldn't leave their coop as they thought it was too dark. That day was as normal as the last smoke advisory one, the only difference being the overwhelming looming reminder that stained itself in the light through our windows, that fire never leaves you.
We are asked to defend the burning of paper instead of children. We're generous about guns, whose mechanisms necessitate the ignition of the bullet. A handheld fire, a handheld fire, a handheld fire.
My senior year of high school, there was a lockdown, as is customary in the American school system. Luckily, I was in the safest building at the time, as the school theater required at least 3 locked doors be broken down before entering. The special education students were able to find safety in the building's green room, meaning if any present threat were to break in from the back entrance, they would be present among them. The man that caused the lockdown was in the student parking lot behind the theater, just a few feet from the easily shatterable glass door to the green room. He had a gun. I overheard some kids near me tell themselves, rather them than us. How terrifying it was to acknowledge the comfort those words gave me, rather the most vulnerable students unable to help themselves than me. How terrifying is it to know that that microcosm of an event is how Americans feel about the fire of a gun, rather the helpless students than me being without one. How terrifying is it to recognize that for a moment I sided with those that let this happen in the first place. I think of the stars, how so much of human history had defined them for their beauty, but to our modern eyes feel supernatural with our light pollution. How for a moment, if we all just took a second for something other than ourselves and turned the lights off, then we'd see the most beautiful fire that would make us feel insignificant.